Hi guys, Norman Sutherland from Higher Ground Lifestyle here. In the last video we fitted larger front speakers in the Suzuki and we found out that that made quite a difference to the sound quality. This time we're going to take the sound improvement to the next stage and we're going to fit rear speakers. Of course the Jimny doesn't come with rear speakers as standard, so we're hopeful that fitting these speakers in the back is going to make quite a difference to sound quality. Should be a good project. These are the two bits that we need to fit the rear speakers. Of course the kit doesn't include the speakers themselves, that's an important thing to point out. Let's have a look at what's in the box. In the first box, that's the bigger of the two boxes, we've got some electrical connectors, we've got some sticky back to foam, and we've got some sticky self-adhesive pads. Not an awful lot in a box that cost me £20.83 plus VAT. And I have to say, having seen the contents of it, I suspect that we could probably put these bits together much cheaper than this just by going to a car accessory place. Something learned already. In the second box, the smaller box, we've got some instructions, we've got some bolts, some more sticky back self-adhesive pads, and a couple of fairly chunky metal brackets. This particular bit of the kit cost me £45.83 plus VAT. And to be quite honest, it wouldn't be difficult to make these brackets up yourself if you were that way inclined. However, given that it's a new vehicle, I think it's better to stick with the proper Suzuki parts. That's what's in the kit, folks. For fitting the rear speakers, the first thing we need to do is to take out the rear seat base. It's held in with a couple of clips at the front and a couple of catches at the back. You've just got to lift it up very heavily from the front and then slide it forward. It's pretty easy, don't be scared to tug it, you won't break it. If you want any more information on this, you can see how I did it in the previous video on fitting the escape gear seat covers. Next thing we've got to do is take out the rear storage box if you have one fitted. If you haven't seen my video on an emergency kit for the Suzuki Jimny, have a look at that. We're also going to remove the carpet that covers the jack and equipment. We're now around to the front, and the next thing we've got to do is to remove the plastic plate that's covering the sill there to protect it. It's just held on by some clips, so we'll use our trim panel removal tools again just to prise that off gently. That seems to be easiest when you start from the front, just gently prising off the clips that hold it on. And there we can see it removed, so you know what you're removing. So it's retained by straight clips at the front and a couple of these white fasteners at the back. Next bit to come off is this trim piece, which is hiding the base of the seat. Again, just so you can see what's holding it in, there are two clips front and rear that slot into the two holes in the base. We now need to remove the pins that are holding on the rear trim at the back. I've removed the first one. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've taken one out just to show you. Let's put it in the light. Essentially, they work like little panel pins, and when they're pushed in, they get squeezed out to hold the thing in. So releasing them is just a case of putting a screwdriver under the top and gently prising it out. And coming back around to the front, there's also a friction fastener holding the trim panel in the front here to be removed as well. We now need to gently pull the side trim away, starting at the top and pulling it along to free it as far as we can. Okay, when we get to the front, it gets a bit trickier because the trim here is actually slightly behind the rear trim. And initially I thought, good grief, I'm going to have to take the seats out, or what am I going to have to do? But in actual fact, you can just get a trim tool in, as I have done on that side, and just gently ease out the lower panel from the upper one so that we can lift it free. Having undone that now, the whole panel clips off at the front and we can slide it out and remove it. The only other thing that I've had to do is to take out the bottom seat belt fastener. Also, don't forget that on the left hand side of the car, if it's fitted with it, you will also have to disconnect the 12 volt supply, which is a straightforward plug connection. So that's the panel removed. It's a slightly tricky job just because of the size of the panel, but let's run over now that it's out the areas that are securing it. So at the back there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different pins. There is the electrical connection if you have one fitted for the 12-volt socket. There are the clips at the front that catch in under the upper trim, and there is the tab that holds it in front of the seat base at the front. That's what's holding the whole thing in. And obviously it clips in at the front as well and wraps around the front door edge. But having removed that, thankfully, we now have access to the whole of the rear of the car so we can fit these speakers. Okay, I've now taken the second side off as well. I have to say, having done the first one, I probably made it look complicated by trying to explain what was going on. Once you know what's happening, actually I removed that whole right-hand side of the car in less than 5 minutes. Dead easy. It's just a case of knowing where the clips are, pulling them off, not being scared, you're not going to break things, using the proper tools, and job done. We're now going to fit the brackets into the holes that they go in. Now in the kit they provide soft foam just to protect the wiring at the back. It says you only need one bit on the left hand side. I think that's wrong, because when I look at the cables I think there's a danger of chafing on both sides on the front and back, so I've just cut the foam down a bit smaller just to protect that cable at the back. The brackets are then attached with the 4 bolts that are supplied in the kit. Now we need to release the wiring harness, which in this UK spec SZ5 model is already provided, and it's just taped up on that cable there, you can just see. So I need to just cut that white tape, release the electrical cable. In terms of speaker preparation, all we've done is we've put the foam around the outside of the speaker exactly the same as we did for the front speakers, and we've also fitted the cable and just put a little bit of insulating tape on just to hold the cables together prior to installation. Just before I install the speakers again, just so you get an indication of the kind of depth that we're talking about, the clearance at the slimmest part of the aperture in the back is about 48 millimeters. So to be quite honest, that confirms my decision not to go with bigger speakers, because the bigger ones I was looking at were about 49.5 depth and they wouldn't have fitted. What that also tells us, there is less depth in the back than there is in the front. Okay, so after the speakers are screwed in using the screws that came in the speaker kit, the electrical installation is completed by reconnecting the electrical connector and taping it back up safely in place where it was temporarily placed prior to the speaker being installed. So that's installed and taped on that side, and installed and taped on that side. Now what you see is on the right hand side of the car, the wiring loom is going to the back, and on the left hand side of the car, the wiring loom is going to the front. Okay, before we do anything else, I just want to make sure I've got sound coming out all of the speakers.
I've got a text!
Right, both of the rear speakers are working. The last job we need to do is to fit the foam around the outside of the speakers exactly the same as we did for the speakers on the front. Okay, so that's the speaker installation complete and the foam fitted. Time to get the trim panels back in, because at the moment there is, quite frankly, just a little bit more kinetic yellow on show than I'm comfortable with. Let's get these panels back in. One final thing, when you're putting the panels back in, don't forget to cut a hole in the material that's in there for the speaker. It would be an awful shame to fit the speakers and then to have them covered up. And also when you're putting in the left hand side, don't forget to reconnect 12-volt socket. Okay, it's only taken about 5 minutes, 10 minutes maximum to get everything back together. Just slot it back in reverse. Last thing to do, put the seat back in, and the job's a good one. Let's see what the sound difference is. Let's do a final test. Okay, so final test. Settings exactly the same. We'll be running on the same road, same media source, same songs even. Let's shut the window and see how we do. I'll turn that down at the same volume setting, it's actually too loud in the car now. The other thing you've got is you've got a much better, I think, sound reproduction, and you have a much fuller sound. Sound's a funny thing. You're only aware sometimes of what you don't have when you experience a difference. And there is definitely a huge difference associated with putting the rear speakers in. It's a better quality of sound, a better depth of sound. That's been a really good and a really worthwhile project. Probably hasn't cost a lot of money. Probably the total cost, including speakers, around about 140 UK pounds. That's pretty good considering the difference that it's made on the car. Look forward to seeing you guys next time, and if there's any projects you want us to have a look at or anything you want to ask us, please drop us a note. We'd be delighted to help in any way that we can. Hope you're finding the videos useful. I'm certainly enjoying doing them. Have a good day, guys.